welcome everyone to a new episode of TechTalk Dudes. As you know, I'm Pim, and I'm here, of course, with my partner in crime, Ronnie de Jong. Hi, Ronnie.
Hi,
Um, Today we're going to talk about a security feature related not to your inside, but to your outside. And with that, what I mean with that is, what I see is lots of organizations are, of course, protecting their valuable assets from the inside of your network. And you can think about protecting your Active Directory or Azure AD from being accessed, installing Defender for Identity, making sure your antivirus is up to date, the Defender for Endpoint is in place. But that's all things which where an attacker would perhaps reside on an internal system to attack your valuable assets. But security from the other perspective is also good to have implemented from an outside perspective. And we, of course, can think about that in terms of firewalling and lots of other things. But Ronnie today is going to show us another great feature, isn't it, Ronnie? Where we can protect our valuable assets from a different perspective from the outside.
Yeah, that's true, Pim. That's a good intro. It's indeed true that we are keeping up with keeping our organization safe and secure, and making sure that our employees can safely work, especially with COVID, remote work. That's great, but it's also coming with new challenges, and usually. We have a risk appetite, and you are trying to mitigate your risks as good as possible. It's impossible to mitigate all your risks. To a certain extent, you have risks, but usually it's always starting from the inside out. So you're protecting from an internal perspective your endpoints, your identities, and that's a good approach. That's very, very good and a logic start. From the other side, the adversaries or the actors, the bad guys are usually coming from the outside, and what they are trying to do is finding weaknesses or vulnerabilities to gain access to your organization from the outside, and that's more from an outside-in perspective, where external attack surface management is helping you and giving you some more insights how you are perceived from the outside. So that's actually what external attack surface management entails. And I'm happy to share my screen to provide. Oh, that's the wrong screen. Just sharing the right one. There we go. And so, as mentioned, our external attack surface is growing and dynamic, and you can also compare it with the ozone layer, which is protecting us, people on the Earth, from the UV radiation or other materials from the atmosphere or from the outer space, and that's also what we are trying to do here. And we have all the mechanisms inside, whether we have good and healthy conditions, but from the outside, it's not always clear. And that's where enterprise or external attack surface management is giving you insights. And the earlier, the better. And this is a kill chain. And what you see normally in a kill chain, that there are some stages where an attacker is applying his techniques and tactics. And normally in this kill chain, we have implemented security controls to make sure that we are able to detect as soon as possible in the chain the adversaries or the bad guys. And with this solution, we are at the earliest stages, the reconnaissance, where you're exploring your environment from the outside. That's where we are starting here, and we are using public information, which is publicly available, to get that picture. And actually, it's how that works. It's in 3 stages. We are discovering. So we are discovering all the public information like your namespaces, IP addresses, or other related assets which are related to your organization. Then you will get an inventory. And based on the inventory, you will get insights on what is vulnerable, what are vulnerables from assets which are exposed to the outside, and also interesting from bad actors. And finally, the last stage is then that you are trying to remediate these vulnerabilities or misconfigurations. And it all starts with, insights.
Okay.
So that's actually in a nutshell what external attack surface management entails.
So if I need to make some, if I can make an example, and lots of organizations maybe still have, some maybe still don't, but let's say I got an Exchange server published to the internet. It's not patched. External attack service for the external attack service management will report that to me, as in, there are vulnerabilities in this particular version. Please patch your Exchange server, as a random example, for example.
That's exactly what it does. And it applies to Exchange servers which are published, but also to other resources which are published. And whether it's hosted by yourself or it's externally hosted, but that's exactly what it entails. And let me show you how the discovery works, because it all starts with gathering the information. And I will show you later on in the demo how the seed, for example, is configured. But the seed does mean your namespace, for example, which can be related or identifies your organization. And by starting with the seed, defining the seed, we can identify the host and the host related to the IP addresses. So we are doing a recursive crawl, and then we're looking up the first degree, and then we are going from the first degree to the second degree to get even more information. And so then also from the opposite, what assets are linked to an IP address, for example. And that's how we are exploring your environment. And the process, to explain, is look like this. So firstly, you're starting in your Azure subscription by creating a resource. And then you can start with a pre-built attack surface template, or you can define your own. And I will show you that later on in the demo. And based on the attack surface template, we are reviewing, gathering, and discovering the information. Then you also look up what assets are definitely linked to your organizations and which are not. There can be also assets which are where you are not responsible for, so you don't want to have them in your inventory. And once the discovery is complete, then you have an overview of your assets which are exposed at the outside. So based on that, you can define what are the highest risks. So you can then prioritize on what you want to mitigate. And with security, it's not a one-off. So that is a constantly process. The information is updated frequently, every week. And based on that, you can see improvements, or you can see there is something more to do.
Check. And it's just reporting, right? It's not that it's doing some auto remediation for you.
That's correct. Yeah. For completeness, the solution has been acquired in August 2021, and that's actually now landing in the first release of our platform. And now it's there. We're going to the next phase where we are incorporating and integrating, for example, this information or the data pointers with, for example, Sentinel or Defender for Cloud.
Check.
Because, as mentioned in the introduction, our security solutions does have a clear picture of the internal side of the house. And now we are combining both products and combining the view of the internal with the external exposed assets. And then you create an holistic view of your entire IT landscape.
Yeah, check. Okay.
So, yeah.
Well, if you have a demo to show, Ronnie, I'm
Yeah,
happy.
I think we have something managed, prepped.
Brett.
Yeah. This is the portal. So as mentioned, it's part of Azure. So you need an Azure subscription, and this is actually the reporting side. But before we going into there, I prepared TechTalk Dude's instance, and as mentioned, you can start with a template. So you can start with an attack surface template. And we already know many organizations, like Contoso, for example. So this could be a Kickstarter, and use the definition, which is part of your organization. But you can also create a custom attack surface. So this is what I meant with the seeds you can define. So you can provide the description, Contoso, and then I can configure Contoso namespace, and I can define multiple namespaces, particularly if you're a larger organization or an international based organization. You can use IP blocks, hosts, or email context, and based on that, you can define these attack surface templates. And then it will take up to 48 hours, 24 to 48 hours to discover your organization. So this is actually the starting point. And once that discovery has been finished, you will get some insights of your external exposed assets. So here, this is demo environment where you see lots of domain names, hosts, and this is the inventory. You see also the attack surface priorities. So this is a summary of the high risk, the medium, and the low. So you can use that for prioritization, the CVSS score, for example. And at the left-hand side, you see also some other dashboards. So here you see a breakdown of the attack surface. Again, the vulnerabilities, but you will see also these in another context. And this is the composition of your estate, but also where your assets being hosted, which cloud provider your assets have been hosted, but also the sensitive services which has been opened or enabled. And these are potential surface entry points for bad actors from the outside. And this is actually basic hygiene. For example, using certificates. Are you using expired certificates, or are you using certificates with a low key length, or with an older or legacy hashing algorithm, but also IP reputation, for example. So there are way much more insights of how your organization is look like from the external side, the outer side.
Check. Yeah, this is really valuable information which we didn't have before.
Yeah, and going back to your question about that Exchange server, we observed, for example, high severity vulnerabilities. So when I'm going here in this section, you will see a lot of vulnerabilities. Again, this is demo data, but when I'm selecting a specific Exchange vulnerability, I can look up all the IP addresses which are associated with that vulnerability. And as mentioned, you'll see here where the vulnerability applies to. And when selecting an IP address, you will see more information about that IP address, which organization has it a good reputation, which services has been published behind that IP address, and also, as mentioned, what services are hosted and which vulnerabilities are applicable to this Exchange server.
Yeah.
So that gives you some starting points to mitigate those vulnerabilities.
Check. And is this feature just like, for example, Defender for DevOps part of Defender for Cloud, or is it really a separate feature which we can find in the Azure portal?
No, it's a separated feature. It's as part of Azure. So it's an Azure hosted services. So you create a namespace, or no, not a namespace, but you create a service in there. Like you create a log analytics resource. So it's actually just a resource you created. You put it in a certain resource group, and from there you create that. It's straightforward, actually.
So basically, the billing is then done based on the subscription level, I think.
Yeah, and that's a good one to emphasize. The billing is actually part on assets which are linked to your organization. So if we are going back to billable assets, the discovery is still going on, but taking the demo environment, billable assets.
A little bit compared to permission management. Not each asset is billable, so it depends on which assets are there. Yeah.
So depending on which assets are identified as billable, so here you'll see the host, the domains, IP address breakdown. You can identify whether or not an asset is billable.
Yeah.
And you can go into the inventory or the discovery. This might take some while because there are a lot of assets in there, but then you can select a certain asset and then you can flag it whether it's associated to your organization. Like this one. You can also remove it, but here you see the status. Is it approved? So then it's billable. Is it a candidate? A dependency means it's hosted with the third party or by an ISP or a cloud service provider. You're not directly responsible for, but it's linked to your organization. So therefore, it might be a dependency, just monitor only, or just requires an investigation whether or not it's applicable to your organization.
Check, and based on that, it's going to do the billing on the subscription level, of course.
Yeah, exactly. And if my memory corrects me well, then I believe it's 1.1. No, it's 0.01. So 1 cent per asset, which is approved to your organization.
Okay. Well, if you have a lot of assets, it can still be a lot of money, but it's of course worth to turn it on. And can you also, maybe a silly question, but can you also turn it on for a while and then decommission it again, or is it something which you buy for a year? So
the resource you're creating, you can easily delete it. So you can create multiple instances. And within that instances, you can define your seats and your organizations you want to discover and take benefit from it. But you can easily delete it, these resources. It's also, it gives you flexibility if you want to include or exclude namespaces, particularly if you're an international organization like a group with multiple labels. As an IT department, you might be interesting to your entire estate, but certain entities might be only interested not in the entire company, but they are just responsible for their own label. So they can exclude all the namespaces from the inventory, for example, or from the discovery.
Okay. I think I think I still have one last question, and then I think then we can wrap it up.
Sure.
Is there any integration possible with some kind of SIEM solution like Sentinel, for example, or is that still or is that today not there yet?
It's a good one, a good question. As mentioned, this is the first release embedded natively in our platform. And we are heading to integrating more and more natively with, for example, Defender for Cloud and Sentinel. So we are currently in preview with some data connectors that gives you the ability and the flexibility to export information and data. And there's also connector available or will be available soon to link with, indeed, for example, Sentinel. And then you can take benefit from the information you have from this the external attack surface management solution.
And have that data, of course, in one central place instead of.
Exactly. Yeah, that's
the one point.
Yeah, this is the first step, and we are heading to that. We are going to that holistic view. Exactly. So not only from the internal side, but also from the external side, how your security posture look like.
Yeah. Okay. Well, looks to me like I got something for the weekend to turn on in my own environment, Ronnie.
Yeah. I'm curious how your environment is look like from the external side. And good to mention is that the first 30 days are free. And depending on how many assets you have, Pim, I can imagine you are able to afford it. So just give it a spin.
Yeah, luckily I don't have an Exchange on-prem server anymore, so that saves me from a lot of vulnerabilities.
Yeah. Cool.
But anyway, yeah. Well, thanks for this. The introduction into external attack surface management and a great demo. I think it's for a lot of people it's something new, something they need to look into, just like me. Yeah, but thanks, great session, and I hope everyone enjoyed it, of course.
Yeah.
So from my point of view, thanks for watching, and hope to see you next time.
Many thanks. Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.